listened to by others. Eric, while we're waiting for a few more people to hop on, do you want to say a few words about the conference coming up in January?
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity. I'll throw the link in the chat when I'm done, but it's a Go link from OSU. But January 4th and 5th is I'm calling it the Ohio Organic Grains Conference. It's a collaboration of a number of folks, hosted or coordinated by OSU Extension and originally our office. And I think it's going to follow me in the new position in farm management that I have with OSU. But it's somewhat narrowed focus on grain and grain production in an organic system. I have great speakers that are coming, and thank you for throwing that in there. And I should have it in my background. I could go through the agenda, but if you want to click on that link, that it's not hot linked, Cassie.
No, it's not.
Let's
see if I can fix that.
That's the registration portal. If you drop off the last three letters and just say organic grains, it'll take you to kind of a press release with some of the speakers, including Joel Groover from Western Illinois, including Leah Barik from Rodeo, Julia Barton from OFA on some transitions, some folks from OSU, and then really 50 sessions are farmer panels. And so I'm really that we have a phenomenal group of sponsors, three of them who I'm calling networking sponsors that were tapped or offered to sponsor the networking event at a historic speakeasy that we're really looking forward to at the historic Souder Village. So I'm really excited about it. If you are with if you're a sponsor, you get one free registration. If you also are with Central State or with Ohio State, your state's representative SARE, or your university SARE representative, if you sign up as university personnel, and I think it's Ohio in general is how it's the Qualtrics is set up, we will invoice your university SARE representative for the $90 registration, and you or your office will not have a cost. So we're really excited about that. You will have to get there and pay for a hotel if you decide to stay both nights. Really excited about it.
Thanks, Eric. Me too. It's a great lineup. So if it's of interest to you or anyone you work with, please check it out. I'd like to extend an invitation to the Steiner Summit. And some of you may be familiar with this, and I know a few of you have already signed up because I peeked at the registration, but it's just a really great event to collaborate with other people working in this space. So it's in Yellow Springs, Ohio, and kind of close to Dayton and Springfield. So, but we're going to make it there from Worcester. So if you want to come and kind of meet up with people, and the theme this year is building resilience for climate change. So timely topic, and it's just kind of fun to see what everybody else around the state's doing. So sponsored by Ohio State, but we get a lot of participation from others. So Julia, did you want to get us started with a little NOSB update?
I'm happy to. So for everybody here, the National Organic Standards Board is they call it a FACA plus board, so a Federal Advisory Regulatory Commission board, but it has a few other additional responsibilities written into the Organic Foods Production Act. Meets twice a year, is a 15-member board from different representing different aspects of the organic community and industry. So there are different seats to represent different areas. There's a certifier seat, there are farmer seats, there are handler seats, etc. Environmental sort of toxicology sort of realm seats. This board is kind of special in that they had never met in person. And some of them had not met in person, for several years. Some are newer to the board. And they just met last week in Sacramento. And it was also a little bit different this time because normally the NOSB meetings include public comment at the meeting. So people stand up at the meeting and give 3 minutes of testimony, and there's an opportunity for back and forth with the board if they have questions. This time, all of that was done virtually. So many members of the organic community kind of felt it was really still very important to show up in person to send the message to the board and to the National Organic Program that this is still our meeting. And we do still want to be involved as stakeholders in person. And so a number of us went and showed up and did that representing. We also commented online, and 3 farmers you probably all know from our community here commented online on a couple of big topics related to fraud prevention in organic grains. So Angela Shriver, Jefferson Dean, and Dave Shively represented on that front. They did so even after commenting to the board for like the last 5 years that the timing of the meetings being spring and fall is really detrimental to farmer input and participation, and that they'd really like a reconsideration of the timing of those meetings. So I was very grateful for their participation, as was the board. And they even mentioned it at the end of the meeting that like the OFA farmers really did represent. So kudos to Angela and Jeff and Dave for making the time. Highlights from the meeting, I have a list here. So very germane to this group, the Organic Farming Research Foundation, or the OFRF folks, Breeze Tenser in particular, who's the executive director, gave a report in person to, it was while Jenny Lester Moffitt and Jenny Tucker. So Jenny Tucker is the head of the NLP. Jenny Lester Moffitt is her boss at USDA. I'm not going to remember the right title. It's like undersecretary of blah, blah, blah. Anyway, she's comes from an organic walnut farm, which is kind of interesting at USDA, Jenny Lester Moffitt. Shoot, and this is being recorded, and I said undersecretary of blah, blah, blah. That's unfortunate. Oh, well, I can't keep these things straight. Anyway, long story short, while Jenny Lester Moffitt and Jenny Tucker were still there, Breeze Tenser from OFRF did a bang up job giving the NORA report. And if you haven't had a chance to check on that, Cassie has plugged it a number of times on these calls. It's chock full of good information that we can utilize in this group to inform our future research questions and collaborations. They did a great job with it, and they broke it down by region, often not state, but certainly by region. And also, like, we're in touch with these folks. I know Lou has served on their board. I'm serving on a couple of their advisory things right now, looking at NIFA projects and stuff. Like, we have a channel of communication to be able to tell them things we need to know, or if we need them to drill down into their data further in a particular arena, to ask if that's a possibility. So, and Thelma Velez, whom some of you might know, did her PhD at Ohio State, worked for OFRF from Florida, and also was there to really back Breeze up on the nitty gritty data questions in that presentation. So it was great to have them there and to provide some context for the meeting. They then did another announcement of the organic transitions, $300 million of support that's raining down from USDA at this time to support organic transition. And they focus particularly on the TOP program, which is a Transition to Organic Partnerships program, which is intended to support transitioning operators through technical assistance. There are other aspects of it that will run through Natural Resource Conservation Service, NRCS, and through RMA, through risk management, as part of crop insurance. So there'll be a lot of support and funding to support transitioning operators. My understanding is that the money was about to go somewhere else, and so they had to very quickly roll out this program, and it definitely feels like it's being very quickly rolled out. The lead in our region is MOSA, which is an organic certifier in this region. What they did was they chose the certifier in the region that has the largest number of certified operations. And that is the lead. And then that person is working with another group of what'll be sort of sub-awardees through, what are they called? Not grants, but cooperative agreements with deliverables, et cetera, to support transitioning operators. So they did a big announcement on that it was then kind of related to the NORA report's needs for support for operators, much of which was in the realm of technical assistance.
Julia, is some of that money going to come to like OFA's Beginning Farmer project, or can like CSU or OSU tap into some of that? If we,
My hope is that all of us will be able to tap
Okay.
into that. And I have a call into MOSA. We have been identified as a core partner because of our long history of transition work, but I'm like hoping that there will be like plenty of, you know, opportunity for collaboration and support to go around.
okay, good.
I'm also thinking about Agraria, you know, like
Mhm.
there's a lot of great partners in our region
Absolutely.
who I think would want to be involved. So that was exciting. They showed a map with a bunch of logos on it. Folks who were there who didn't have their logo on the map were upset. And, you know, folks, it's just all being rolled out very quickly. So we're just going to like give some grace on that and hope that we can all pull it together and make some hay out of it. There was also a critique made like, oh, well, this is $300 million over 5 years, flash in the pan. What happens next? There are folks, and one of them is an NOSB member. Her name is Allison Johnson from the NRDC, Natural Resources Defense Council, I believe is their acronym. And they are working on a marker bill for the farm bill to try to have some longer term transition support. So there are, you know, people thinking ahead on that, which I think is great. I'm going to stop there and then I'm happy to dig into the meat of the meeting, but that was like the big kind of NOP and research pieces. Anything on that, or should I keep going?
I've got another question on top. I had looked into that a little bit and I noticed there was a meeting coming up this month, mostly talking about like infrastructure needs. And
That's for
do
the
you know
market
anything about
development.
that? Mhm.
Yeah, that's for the market development piece, which is the third bucket of 100 million that is going into this project. And they're going to do a listening session on market development needs. Good point, Cassie.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, I know there's been some work done with in fact about like slaughterhouses and that kind of thing. So, I mean, is that something that maybe we should show up and present and talk about? Or are there some other people that maybe we should tag to talk at that?
So 75 million also dropped yesterday for meat processing,
Ah,
also from USDA. So I can forward that. I can forward those links to make sure we get them in the notes. I think the market development piece that they're talking about, that they're going to have the listening session later this month. My suspicion of what they're talking about there, based on some of the language that I've seen, is that that's focused on grain rotations.
oh,
Right? Because
more diversity and
yeah, because like great,
how to
I can grow
market
small
those. Mhm.
grains, but then what do I do with them? Right? So or teff or einkorn or, you know, ancient grains, whatever. That's my suspicion of what they were thinking, but I think it's a listening session. We can tell them whatever we want, and it'd be great to do that.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, so that on the like raining of money and connection with research. Research specific in the meeting was the topic of the research priorities that NOSB puts forward. And I'd love for this group to help inform those in the future. The opportunity for informing those is really at the spring meeting. The fall meeting is really more of a like, yes, we approve these proposals and move them forward to NEFA. But in the spring, we would have the opportunity to review their list, you know, provide public input. Like even this group could hypothetically say, hey, we have a few ideas based on what we're seeing here in the Midwest of research gaps or needs or, you know, perspectives that we could share. And I'd love for us to, you know, think about if we want to engage together on that in the future. But that did go forward to NEFA. So there is a list that goes from the NOSB every fall to NEFA for, you know, providing input on those topics. And then there were a few topics that I wanted to make sure to share with this group. One of them two of them have to do with fraud prevention in grains, which has been a big topic of this group over time, brought up by our colleagues at O-Farm, which is a cooperative of cooperatives of grain marketing. And they really kind of like railed at these meetings for some years to get NOSB and NOP to address those topics. And born out of that discussion was the strengthening organic enforcement rule, which we are expecting to see a final rule on hopefully in, this winter sometime. Okay, fingers crossed. We've already seen the proposed rule. We're hoping the final rule will come out. We do expect that there will still be opportunities for improvement there, and the board is already working on those. So two of the very specific opportunities for improvement that were discussed at this meeting, and which OFA farmers represented on, one of them was listing acreages on organic certificates to make auditing more readily doable on the fly at mills, by inspectors, between operations, et cetera. And then also there's some discussion of more standardized documentation, and OFA has kind of a split perspective on this. Our grain growers were very clear that they think the specific use of a universal bill of lading, which would be used to like at the loading of grain to be taken to mills, for example, that specific use for that tool is appropriate and should be standardized. We have concerns about the prospective universal organic system plan, because we have concerns that it could be watered down beyond the point of our comfort level by some certifiers, or by the National Organic Program, were it to be a standardized form. So like OFA, for instance, has worked over time with the Wild Farm Alliance to include all kinds of wonderful biodiversity pieces in our organic system plan. We explicitly do not certify hydroponic operations. These are areas where we may differ from other folks and other certifiers, and definitely do differ with the National Organic Program. So so those two pieces were discussed at the meeting. They did pass the vote to do the acreage reporting. That was at a proposal level, and they did pass that vote. We were happy about that. OFA's been doing that for at least a decade, if not longer. And we'd be happy to see other certifiers do the same. And then the bit about minimum reporting requirements to deter fraud or universal documents, et cetera, was at the discussion document stage. So that may come back in the spring as a proposal. Let me stop there, because that's like a chunk of it, and see if anybody has questions or comments. I know this is like inside baseball, and if the answer is like, Julia, we really don't care, that's okay too. No, you all love it. You're eating it up, taking lots of notes. Okay. All right. Another big picture topic was organic and climate smart agriculture. So there was a fairly nice list of ways in which organic is climate smart, which is like a big thing of this administration and is dictating a good bit of funding at this time for various projects, some of which do involve research and monitoring. So the way they worked the climate smart proposals at USDA was that you had to they didn't call it research, but you had to include monitoring pieces in your project that demonstrated that your practices were indeed climate smart. The organic folks, of course, want to already be considered like organic is climate smart, which USDA is not on board with, which is interesting. So there's these series of memos going back and forth between USDA, well, usually NOP, and the National Organic Standards Board about climate change, climate smart agriculture, the ways in which organic supports resilience in the face of climate change, et cetera. And there are a list of fairly well organized list of practices and their benefits in the link that Cassie sent out. Some of the members of the board used to work for USDA as researchers and were like, you actually already have these answers within your scientists at USDA. Why are you asking this volunteer board these questions? So that was like another kind of an interesting back and forth. There was a verbal update offered on excluded methods. A number of us in the community have asked for a consistent agenda item for excluded methods. Excluded methods in the organic context means genetic modification or genetic engineering, which is, it is prohibited in organic, with a few tiny exceptions, like the substrate on which the vaccine was grown that's allowed to be given to the cows. Okay, right? I see you, Luciana, nodding your head. So like, it's tricky, like we say it's excluded, but of course, if you really look at the details, there are little pieces where it does end up being not excluded. Mindy Jeffries is the board member. She's the vice chair of the NOSB, and she has taken up this topic and really looked very closely at the various technologies in use, and has called for like an ongoing review of them. There was a question posed by another offgoing board member. So this was his last meeting at the onset of the meeting when Jenny Tucker and Jenny Lester Moffitt were in the room, asking about GMO rootstock so that we could grow trees in the desert. Something along those lines was his question. It was the first question of the meeting. So you can imagine how that went over. And so Mindy Jeffries, the next day when she gave the verbal update, just reminded everyone that the organic community has been very clear on GMOs in organic, and that that is an excluded method, and that it's not a Pandora's box, that organic is explicitly different in that way by choice. It is a voluntary program, and that was kind of a place where organic stakeholders have been very united over time. So that was interesting. There's some nitty-gritty work on ion exchange filtration. Are folks familiar with that technology? Maybe in like juice making, for example, or if you have a well, maybe you use salt in. So I'm like not the best person to explain the technology, because I had to really study in order for OFA to be able to like discuss and comment on it. But the gist of it is that you're exchanging cations and anions to remove things that you don't want in, like say the juice. Maybe it's a pigment that you want removed, so the juice isn't brown, but it retains like a more of a red color for marketing, for instance. There's a challenge in that the resins that are utilized in that process, there was a question about whether or not they should be listed individually in the standards and reviewed individually. So this is how nitty-gritty organic can get. And it did at this meeting. It was at the discussion stage. So everybody agreed that the recharge materials for those solutions need to be reviewed and listed on the national list. The resins are still under discussion. So if you work with handlers and you're interested in that, we can talk more, but I'm going to stop there because I don't think this is everybody's jam. I welcome your questions and discussion. And I also welcome if anybody like wants to get in on this in the future and help inform comments or comment on behalf of your own organization or engage farmers you work with in the process. It took me a minute to like figure out how to do that. And if I can help you figure out how to do that, I'd be happy to.
Thanks, Julia. Yeah, it sounds like you sat through a lot of information, nitty gritty, as you said.
It is nitty gritty.
So,
it's like inside baseball, organic nerd land.
Yeah. Appreciate the layman's update.
You bet. I hope
right.
That wasn't too much. You can rein me in at any time. Top layer, like takeaways, OFRF NORA report, check it out. And we could, as a group, inform NOSB's research priorities if we wanted to. I think we'd be well positioned to do that in the future.
Yep. Any other questions for Julia? All right. Well, we'll move on to, just wanted to review really quickly the grant that we successfully submitted. So thanks to anyone who responded for when we sent out questions, comments, requests for letters, all that good stuff that goes into a successful grant. So I'm just going to real quickly, this was a partnership that we sent in for the SARE grant. And it's not a whole big pot of money. It's like $50,000. So it's enough to kind of do some of the work, like the workshop we talked about in February. But I am gonna, just to keep myself on track, I made some quick PowerPoints. So I'm gonna share my screen and just kind of go over the objectives and the main points there. So we are hoping to use this money to host 5 in-person workshops, and these are at a variety of places. that farmers usually gather and that researchers, we would like to see them gather at more. So I'll show a list of those 5 that we identified here in a second, but the basic idea is to bring educators, researchers, and farmers together in the same room and get them talking, maybe in small groups, start fleshing out some of these research ideas and groups, and maybe they're going to take off and get a proposal going or a small research project going. That's kind of the hope that's going to come out of this. And of course, the other thing is just getting them talking together, I think, is a win. So that farmers, when they have a question or an idea, they know who to reach out to. They know what resources are available at Central State and at Ohio State. And, I would be happy to get some other universities and colleges involved in this as well. So we're not the only game in town. But we would also like to continue having these meetings. And I think we've talked about this in this group before, but kind of use these monthly meetings to follow up on questions. Like if something comes up and we know it's already been researched to death, maybe we can get a speaker in to kind of talk about that and invite these farmers to come to that and be able to listen in and be able to ask questions if they don't understand, or if they have specific requests and needs that these researchers may not think about. So, and then of course, one of the measures of success would be getting some of these grant proposals going and kind of building this program back up and having some money to do some specific projects. So those are kind of our objectives. And here's the workshops we chose. We have reached out. Either Julia, Denise, or I have reached out to all of these organizations and events. And so you can see we have 5 listed, and they fall within various times of the year. So they're kind of spread out a little bit. And we took a stab at how many farmers we might engage. And our budget was kind of based on those numbers. And then we thought about these 5 main groups that we wanted to be sure to hit. So row crop grower, organic row crop growers, organic specialty crop growers, the organic dairy community, and then also the plain community and our underserved growers. So we made sure we had events that were hitting all of these different audiences. And then of course, we'll plan to do a wrap up and a kickoff event at the OFA conference, which kind of hits all of these audiences. And then again, the main things we want to do are just kind of help farmers understand research and maybe get them going on some specific grant proposals. At least we put in our goals that we would submit at least 3 of those proposals, or at least get a team going to talk about their development. And then the other outcomes we talked about were maybe co-creating with the farmers some educational resources. And those could just be the recordings of these meetings if they end up being topical. That might be a nice resource that we can share on our various websites and kind of highlight. And I have not done it yet, but I would like to kind of look through past Warner grants, past SARE grants, and find a few presenters that we think would be of interest to the group. And I think not every meeting is going to appeal to everyone, but if we have enough variety, we're gonna hit everybody's requests, I think. And it's going to be interesting just seeing what comes out of these different farmer meetings. And I think that'll offer us a lot of guidance as to what kind of programming we can do together. And then field days, maybe. I'd love to do a field day at the Herzl and show off those trials we're doing and kind of run through, what worked, what didn't, what lessons we learned, which I think we're already seeing some of those lessons. So, and then I just wanted to say most of the budget for the $50,000 is going to go directly towards travel stipends for the farmers and just kind of event support for these groups that we're working for. Denise and Julia and I kind of sat down and decided we could keep doing what we've been doing and not take any extra money off that very small grant. So it's amazing when you start plugging numbers in how quick that money goes. So Any comments, questions on any of that? Ideas? And I know I tagged a few of you to kind of help out with these. So we're going to be looking to have some researchers and educators in the room that can really dive into some research questions and how they might answer them, how we might research those, and kind of get things going, talking with these farmers. So, all right, cool. And
Cassie, can we highlight the first event, the OVA Conference 2023, what we have tentatively scheduled right now? So we can get on
absolutely.
calendars.
Yep. And that is, I actually brought up we have kind of a rough draft of that now. I don't think it's seen much work, but I'll share that real quick here. The other thing I thought of was we had a kind of a recruitment poster, and I looked at that and it's kind of outdated. So in light of this new event, I think it'd probably be good to get another version of that and maybe start distributing it a little bit. So if you can think of some places to put that out there, or some different ways to get that word out, just let me know. Okay, so February 16th. We do still need some people to help with this. As Julia mentioned, one of the quick outcomes of these kinds of meetings is to just kind of inform that research agenda kind of for the region with some Ohio specific needs. So I think, that's something we can really hold up as an immediate benefit of getting together and listening to farmers and getting them together in the room talking about these things. So, all right.
Can I just
Oh,
ask now,
yeah, go ahead.
just straw poll, are folks thinking they're going to be able to make this? And does anybody feel like they would be able to throw in on one of these pieces where we still need somebody to throw in? Because this is like totally a crowdsourced, like group sourced effort. Casey, John, and I are going to be running in like a bunch of different, and Sasha are going to be running in a bunch of different directions that day. And so we're not going to be available to fill those roles, but would anybody else here be up for facilitating a brief session? Or Luciana?
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, that would be great. And if you feel called to any particular portion of that, or if you need a minute to review it, or Anne, I don't know if you're planning to come down. Just a quick pitch for the OFA conference. It's going to be at a cozy lodge in Newark.
I saw pictures.
I was planning to come down.
Yay.
Yay.
I don't, I'm a very small farmer, but I do have enough background in running educational conference type things. So it's kind of figuring out the best place to put me, because I'm not a big name farmer, but I do kind of know how an event like this would run.
Yep. Perfect.
Yeah, you can put me like from the 10:30 to 11:30, like the fun icebreaker. I don't think I will be a good facilitator on that, but the next section, I'm okay on leading that.
People either like icebreakers or they don't. That's just how it is.
Doug is good at them. And
maybe just put his name in there if he's good
I
at
think
it.
so. He is.
I volunteer Doug.
That's what happens when you don't show up.
But this is really as a draft schedule that like Doug, Cassie, Julie, and I have thought through. I anticipate we'll be meeting more than once to flesh it out more. So as I'm like capturing these notes and all, I'm kind of, if you just said you would like to participate, I'm hoping that means you'd like to participate in our future planning of this workshop.
Yeah.
Which is not scheduled how we're doing that yet, but
something I'd like to decide today. So
yeah, awesome.
Would be good.
Mm-hmm.
I remember from our last meeting, or maybe 2 meetings ago, that Deb Steiner had also said if she's available, she would be happy to be part of this. She would probably be good at an icebreaker too.
We do have a previous set of volunteers in that previous set of notes on this too. So we could do that. We could glean from that as we move forward. That's exciting. Good. It's going to be great. It's going to be a great meeting, and I'm really stoked about the location. Did I mention it was going to be a cozy lodge?
How cozy. Will we fall asleep?
There are fireplaces.
Oh, nice.
I'm excited about the new venue.
Yeah.
I'm not sure as cozy as the word that draws me or not, but I'm excited about Newark. So
Shorter drive.
Pick a word, Eric. I mean, and do
not
share.
shorter. My word is not shorter. It is not
It's-
shorter for
It's
me.
not shorter
So
for me either, but it's I mean, I'm going with you pick a word. Let me know what it is and I'll sell it your way too. Okay. Just let me know.
What are the exact dates of the conference? I'll add it to our notes.
16th through 18th.
Thank you.
Yes. And is now an appropriate time, Cassie, to mention the Farm Bill session that's also happening?
Yes, please do.
So, okay, two pieces on this. There will be OFA has released its Farm Bill platform. There are 5 planks. One of those planks is research. I am facilitating the research working groups that will lead up to the conference and continue after the conference. I would welcome your participation in those, and I will be sending out invites, and I will include this group. If you don't want to come, I won't be offended, but I would really value your input as people who've already identified as like interested in this topic, and also recognizing that participating in the Farm Bill arena on this topic will determine where the money goes that we will then have access to do what we want to do for our projects, and priorities to a degree. So feeding into that process would be like, I would be grateful. Also on the 16th, which is going to be happening concurrently with this session that we have planned, there will be a Farm Bill kind of action day-long session taking place. The afternoon of that session, when our plan in this group is to break out and like identify specific research projects, there will also be an afternoon breakout session for Farm Bill work groups. So if anybody wanted to float over to that other session in the afternoon, they would be more than welcome. And if I knew a couple people were going to be there, that would help me feel like the information from this group was being carried to that one. So if we wanted to be strategic in that way, I think that might be a good idea. So yeah.
What time? I mean, let's get that on the schedule, because I think it would be great to have somebody from this group, even if some of the groups are still working, to just kind of have like a report out. At least like send somebody over there to say, hey, here's what we discussed over at this other session.
Yeah, that would be great. So the breakouts for that group are after lunch, just like this group. And in the morning, that group will be talking about the narrative work around how we talk about our issues and how we engage in the Farm Bill, et cetera.
Okay.
But yeah, it'd be really great to have somebody steeped in this group engage with that group in the afternoon. And if we could be strategic about who that might be, or like how folks might want to carry that over, that would be great.
Okay.
So if we could even put it in here as like a breakout, would be to jump over to there and have a couple delegates. That would be awesome.
Oh, delegates.
Maybe from like different topic areas or wearing different hats. So yeah, that would be really helpful. And then also separately, there'll be these separate Zoom meetings that I'll be sending you invites for if you'd like to participate in the research plank of that process.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it would be nice to tap into that. I feel kind of bad because we're competing with it, but if we can add to it and add to the discussion, I think that would be a good thing.
It happened really organically, and I feel like that's special about this group. So I want to honor that. And also like, I want to glean the information and the energy from this group into that one. So if folks are comfortable with that and we can swing it, I think that would work really well.
Perfect. Okay. Are we still good with like a panel? And do we want to stick with these people, or do we want to think about others? Do we want to assign people to maybe reach out to them, or do we want to have a separate meeting for all this? That is also an option.
Well, Bridget is here.
Mhm.
Bridget, are you good being on that panel? to talk about the cover crop work?
Yeah, that'd be fine. I don't
Thank
mind
you,
doing that.
Bridget.
You're welcome.
We appreciate you.
That's okay. I can contribute. I just need somebody to hold my hand sometimes and then let me go. So
That's all good.
then I would be fine.
We
Great.
all need that.
I got the sense that Michelle Wallace was committed.
Mhm.
So we need to bug Kathy Bielek. She's a
Yeah.
powerhouse. We need her there.
She is great. Yeah, I don't mind reaching out to her.
Would you
Yeah,
tell her I miss her?
I'll tell her that from both of us.
Okay, that'd be
Okay,
great.
maybe we'll have coffee or something.
Yeah. Oh, have coffee. Do.
What do we want out of these? I mean, I want to ask this question where there's a lot of people in the room. What do we want out of these panels? Like, do we want a how-to, a tips to pass on? I don't think we want each person to kind of get into the nitty-gritty of the projects they did, but I think, like, that's what I'm asking. What do we want them to share?
And so just for clarity, the panel we're talking about in the schedule we're looking at is the 10:30 to 11:30, 20-minute presentations, where these are individuals that are doing on-farm research that we had considered because they are working with researchers, they are farmers themselves, or they are or groups of farmers. So a little bit of inspiration as well. Like, how can they inspire our group best, I guess, is also part of this question.
I was trying to step back and think this is being geared to farmers who don't know much about research in general, correct?
Yeah, well, it could be. I think
To-
that's one of the goals. Yeah.
To the network. So it'll be farmers and researchers.
Right.
I mean, Bridget's a farmer. Michelle's an extension educator, and
Right.
Kathy's a farmer, but also has a good understanding of the extension end, I feel like.
So I feel like people won't know how, number one, to collaborate, because farmers don't typically know how to do research, and researchers aren't always farmers. And so, although they know a lot about farming, so I'm thinking a little bit about something in terms of how the collaboration works, which is going to be different in each of these cases, depending on which end you're coming from, and maybe a little bit on, how the research question developed, because people don't even know how to define a research question well enough to take it to the steps where you can actually study it. So, and it's only a 20-minute presentation. So thinking about it in kind of those broad strokes as some of the goals of each of the presentations on the panel, rather than the nitty-gritty of the research itself.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too, Anne. Both good points.
And I'm taking this very much from working in a different environment where, again, researchers are working with the people actually doing, in this case, farming, and thinking how you put that together.
So what if we had, like, maybe gave each of them a few minutes to describe their project? And I mean a few minutes, like in a nutshell. And then we had like questions we asked and each of them answered. So we could gear them to, maybe we could even ask if they have any horror stories or really good examples of times when collaboration worked or didn't work, or something went awry.
I feel like sometimes you learn a lot from the like this didn't work thing.
Yep.
And I feel like we should be open, or I hope people would be open to sharing those without, like no judgment.
No judgment.
Like just to learn from it.
No,
And
and
to continue with that, and then how would you do it better? Which in research, you finish your research project with more questions and you realize all the things you did wrong. So the next project goes better. I mean, that would be perfect to blend right into the rest of our hopes too, that reality of you never get your project right. And that means you always have another project to do at the end, or like 16 of them. But that's perfect to highlight that.
Yep, I agree. And I love what Ann said about the research question too. I mean, that's like that, and that's gonna really get to the heart of what the work we're gonna do in the afternoon and
So-
developing those.
So one of the things I just was thinking, and I pulled up, but I haven't had time to process it, is a model I've used. Granted, I'm coming from a more medical, clinical field, but how you ask a research question. So you've got this general idea, but how do you then formulate it into a research question? So I don't know if we're going to meet again as a smaller group, but I was going to look through that and see if it could be tweaked in a way. It's really worked well, I think, for novices who haven't ever contemplated putting something into a question you can actually answer with research, rather than, I want to know which cover crops to plant. You know, because your initial statement is often too broad, or your research interest is too broad to make it actually doable. So I
You're
will,
asking too many questions.
right.
Yeah.
And you can't begin to break it down to something that's actually doable. So I'll look through that, just because it was a nice format and it might be modifiable to this setting.
I will also say, if people aren't familiar with it, SARE has a really great publication on doing on-farm research. And, you know, I'm very sure we can get free copies of this to distribute and
That
perhaps
would be good.
use. And it covers things like that. So I think, you know, part of this process might be looking through that and seeing what ways we can use that. And then we send it home with them too, so they have it to refer back to.
And is that publication on the SARE website?
Yep.
Okay,
I will share a link to that.
Another,
look at that, because that may already have everything done that I think.
That's what I'm guessing. Yeah.
In my mind, having done this process before in a little different setting,
Mhm.
That's what I think we need, some format for the afternoon.
Yep.
In order to take these kind of broad questions and narrow them down, so that we come up with some actually, you know, meat out of the process.
I had trouble finding it, but there's also a really good paper that Doug had shared with me about a group in Canada that went through this exact same process, where it was farmer led, and they had a workshop and they had materials for the farmers to work through. So I may do a little more digging on that too. I really like the way they designed it, and we know it worked. It was successful in Canada anyway.
So I will reach out to our state SARE rep, which is Michelle Wallace. So we'll make sure to have that.
how
And
convenient.
not just,
Yay.
right? Yeah, not just this one too, but let's think for like the entire
Yeah.
proposal
We can
to
get like a whole
and you
box
know
of
what?
them.
Yeah, gosh, if we were really thinking when we did the proposal, we could have been like, hey, Sarah, one of our action items is to provide your
Oh, I did. I did put it
document.
in. I
Did you?
slipped it in
Okay.
at the last minute on that last section about
Yeah,
previous
yeah,
research.
yeah.
So,
You'll like
Job,
that.
Cassie,
We're-
good
yeah.
catch.
Okay, so I will make sure that we have those available and that we would be able to have them available to all of the workshops.
Yep.
Because I think that's a nice resource to be able to send someone home with if they want it.
Yep. Perfect.
Another like goal I have for my own self for this day is connecting with more folks that may want to be involved in those other meetings throughout the year, and may want to be involved in this
Mhm.
ongoing effort, like in the network, so to speak. Like we would call it base building in the policy world. What do we call it here? Network building. Like we want more folks that are interested in the same stuff we're interested in to be in the conversation.
Yeah.
So,
I think
Yeah.
we need to do a better job at like planning these topics ahead and getting the word out. Like I'm terrible at that. But
well, this is part of the challenge of doing it on a shoestring,
it
right?
is,
It's nobody's
yes.
job. So we're like,
No.
we're doing our best, but
Mhm.
I think Two, if like everybody here invited somebody, this is going to sound churchy right now, bear with me. If everybody here invited somebody else to the Farmer Researcher Network, then we could also grow that way.
Preach.
And yeah, preach.
And is somebody going to take charge of revising that handout flyer that you sent out last month about this group?
I have the original, so I can kind of work on that and maybe send it around.
I mean, I don't know who has,
Um,
but
We'll figure that out.
Yeah,
because I think if we had that a little updated, it'll be easier to send out
yes.
to people.
Let's make that a priority then. And then let's reach out to everyone on the list and see who might be interested in maybe some smaller meetings to get us ready for the February event. Because I don't want to spend time with this group every month hashing through this. So,
Yeah.
but I do want to get, like, if we have some big questions that we want group input on, I think we can come back to this group.
Yeah. It's also nice that it's born of this group and like we own it. So it's our session. Like it's we just like are doing our own food and farm school at the OFA conference, which is kind of nice. Like most groups don't get to do that.
Cool. All right. I see we're about out of time, but I was gonna bring up, if Bridget is willing, and I haven't talked to her yet. And I haven't talked to the extension gals that have been helping me with the trial for the cover crops. But I think maybe we could give a little update in December at the meeting. If someone has another idea, that would be fine too. But I don't know.
Luciana, do you have anything organic in the works right now? Oh. And also I keep thinking you're in a barn, like just zooming in from the barn. Everything's fine.
Well, I'll be happy to be in the barn anytime. So, well, if I have some research on organic, is that what you're asking?
That you would be up for sharing with this group. We had talked about having like regular updates on projects that are ongoing in these meetings instead of them being, this was kind of like workshoppy today, but we'd like to have, like the group has expressed interest in having like maybe a 20-minute presentation at the start of the meeting and then questions and discussion thereafter. So that we're like seeding ideas and about, organic and sustainable ag research in this arena.
Sure, like I can talk about the research that I'm doing on milk quality, if that is interested to the group or the farmers that might be sitting on the group as well. So I'm more than happy to share.
Great.
Anytime.
We could line up our winter programming right now.
Yeah,
It would be nice. And
Yeah.
we talked about getting someone in from PFI as well. So that might be something to look in. Does anyone know someone at PFI?
Yes,
Could reach out.
I do.
Okay. So maybe
Hi.
Julia, you could take care of that.
Just for this winter sometime.
Yeah,
TBD.
yeah, yep.
Like
John.
how they did it is the kind of the question on that one.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm like interested in how they became a sustainable, in the term of longevity, kind of organization. So.
Okay. And Luciana, you've got milk quality and Bridget, cover crop update.
Okay. And John, you said that milk quality is a good thing to be talking about. Is there any specific topic on milk quality that you are hearing, or did you want to hear it?
Well, are you correlating it with management practices? Is that how it's working? Or
It could be, yes.
that would interest me. I don't know
Okay,
about others.
okay. It could be.
John,
Yeah.
I see you. John's perking up. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, like he was.
I'm just curious to hear what you're working on and yeah, go from there, I guess.
Okay, so like most of my practices are on preventive medicine. So every time that I go to a farm, I review everything in the farms, from like the feed, from the water, from the management, for the bedding. So, and then I put all together and then we do the recommendations. So based on the goal of the farm and what we are seeing on the farm, we do like the list of recommendations and then we go from there. So it's everything, like it's very broad.
Holistic.
In terms of animal health, in terms of recommendations, in terms of, we could be more specific. So it's troubleshooting the problem. So more on the management practice, for example, I think in 20 minutes will be something that we can do easily and it will be more interested for the group. If
That'd be awesome.
Okay.
And the whole preventive frame is like, so
Perfect.
where it's at for organic. Yeah.
And I think it's organic, right? Like we do not have the antibiotics as a tool, so we have to prevent it to be happening at the farming, which I like. Being in the preventive medicine department is what I like.
Yeah.
Like to prevent disease instead of being treating disease.
Yes.
Okay. So sounds good. Like I can do it. It'll be a pleasure.
Thank you.
Cool.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Cool.
What about you, Eric? Not to put you on the spot, but do you want to, you did some interesting side dressing stuff and what else you got? Corn.
Or people you know.
Sorry, I was on
Yeah,
the
or
other
people you
line.
know.
To
Oh.
restate your question.
I'm sorry, there will be no more on the other line at these meetings. No, I'm kidding. Do you have anything you'd want to throw in as a winner topic to share for like 20 minutes at one of these meetings? We're like doing a winner lineup right now.
In that Word document that you're showing, or you're talking about on these particular calls?
On these
Yes.
calls for the network, on the online calls. Would you have anything you'd want to share, or would you want to ponder that?
Yeah, I think we can. Manure work is what I've done mostly, and now kind of transitioning into some more economic type stuff. Some of the things that I'll be sharing at the grain conference and also with Osler at the OFA conference is the organic corn budgets, which OSU had kind of left expire for 10 years. And so I'm going to be working on those on a more regular basis. Again, kind of in that organic commodity space, but still a very, very valuable space in my mind. So choose whichever you'd like. I'm telling you that because I'm somewhat working my way out of, I'll call it field research, and doing a little bit more economic type research. So it's a long answer to your question, but I would have some information on manure nutrients if that's of interest.
I'm always interested in
Always.
manure. Yeah. Cool. And then if folks knew other people that were doing interesting things that we could tap outside of this network, that we could bring people in, we could get a lineup going. And
Osler's doing some interesting work on like inoculates and inoculants in corn production. I can't remember what they were, but I will check into that a little more.
I have to jump.
Yep.
This
I
has been
imagine a
great.
few people do.
I'll look forward to the notes too, Denise.